New top 10 trade targets with trade freeze lifted. USA basking in Olympic glory. And what would Canada do differently? So many questions to ask. There is the hockey insider, Frank Seravalli. I'm Bucci Main, and this is Frankly Hockey. Frank was supposed to be traveling home today, but storm in the Northeast has kept him in Italy an extra day. But where exactly are you? That's a different hotel room. What has your day been like? What has your day been like for many people who's had their travel plans interrupted?
Yeah, so I'm actually in Germany. Was supposed to connect.
You get to see it.
Yeah, in Frankfurt. So with my flight canceled onward from Frankfurt to home, I'm here and decided to visit a buddy, which was a great way to kill a day. That's been fun. But it was so interesting at the airport in Milan this morning because, well, I'll put it this way. No one was really feeling well this morning. You were either on the one hand, an American fan that was hungover, or on the other hand, you were a Canadian fan that wanted to forget that entire experience happened. There was no middle ground. And so you could clearly tell who was who by the look on their face, just a different version of airport hell with the lines and queues trying to get out of Milan after the Olympics.
Yeah, now the afterglow is here, and that's what's cool. You know, I started thinking about that, Frank. I really hadn't gotten ahead of myself, obviously, until you win the game. And when you win the game, you're just kind of euphoric because, like I said, it was fun to watch a game as a fan for once for me. I've kind of lost my fandom with my favorite teams growing up. And so that was really cool. And then I started thinking about it. Like, I look back again because I was 14 years old in 1980. So obviously, I remember a lot, remember what it felt like, remember watching, and remember after the fact how the afterglow started. Players started signing contracts. Jim Craig shows up in Atlanta with a Coca-Cola commercial. Other players, they start going to rinks. And like Jack Hughes is going to start to get ovations at opposing rinks, not just his own. I mean, they'll put his picture probably with the flag, that iconic photo they'll put on the New Jersey Jumbotron, and he'll give a like it's his last game or first game back or retiring. He'll get that kind of ovation in New Jersey. He'll get that at other rinks too, and other players will. So the afterglow, which started today in the Milan airport, you saw firsthand, it's starting to sink into me now.
Yeah, and you're right. First game out of the chute for the Devils, I believe, is in Pittsburgh. So you know that the Steel City is going to be giving him that American hero treatment, as they well should. Interestingly, of course, Sidney Crosby not expected to be in the lineup, and he is expected to miss some chunk of time, whether it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. This was not a simple injury. And as much as the storyline was that he tried to play through it, like this injury is going to impact materially, I would imagine, the Pittsburgh Penguins playoff chances.
So we have a lot of cool stuff coming from Milan. Obviously, after the gold medal goal was scored by Jack Hughes. I'll let you kind of drive the bus there, Frank, in terms of these different images and sound bites that we have talking about. I loved how the players had their back, how the Hughes brothers really had Auston Matthews back, calling out Toronto media. I love how direct they've been in that. I think there's no beating around the bush, no passive aggressiveness. I love that about Mike Sullivan's post quote about milk drinkers and whiskey drinkers was a home run. So much rich content for people in our business to collate.
There really was. And I think one of the really cool parts about the scene for Team USA is that, and this isn't a knock against Canada, but the U.S. stayed in the Olympic Village throughout the entire tournament. They didn't go to their cozy hotel. And so the interactions that they had with the figure skaters, the speed skaters, anyone that was staying in that village alongside them, those were real interactions. So when you go back, let's say afterwards, and you party and you bring the party to the village, these are people that you've been hanging out with for the last 2 weeks. It's not like they don't know you and you just stormed in with your gold medal and you brought the beer. These are people that you've been hanging out with. And we'll start, of course, with the Tkachuks. I mean, 1 o'clock in the morning, Auston Matthews posts this is Brady, because we got to start with the Parm because Parm stays hungry.
What does that mean? Is that his nickname? Is that
I,
like I need to know. This is gold.
I think they were talking about you. This was a tweet. Just they put out the Bucci main bat signal.
Maybe they did. God, because the parm is gone, and he's all he has is the pasta there. And I don't know what these little chocolate beautiful things are, but there's 5 of them. I don't know if Brady housed all of it, or if that's a tray for all his teammates. But yeah, Parm stays hungry. I gotta. I'm gonna text Keith after the show. Like, what's is your boy's name Parm? Because I kind of like that. I might want some residuals.
Yeah, you should ask for some residuals, and I mean, you probably need 5 chocolate cakes to soak up all the champagne. I saw at one point they had wine, champagne, and beer, sometimes all in the same fistful. So again, those might have been a few hazy players making it to the charter this morning that left at 9 a.m. Milan time.
And look at this. I mean, Dylan Larkin, he might be out 3 to 5 weeks with an L5 injury in that lower spine, giving Mike Eruzione I mean, that boy's got some leg strength to pick up Eruzione.
Yeah, I don't know what the thought process was here, and I like that Charlie McAvoy is DJ here, holding up the speaker like it's 1992 at your local playground with the boombox. But
I thought it was a
Mike
fan
Eruzione,
keeping Eruzione cool.
oh, whatever it is electric. And I mean, look, this is now that's the fun part about thinking about this Olympics is trying to find its place in history. I mean, the Jack Hughes goal, it's not the Mike Eruzione goal, but it's the Eruzione goal beating the Soviets and then Jack Hughes.
Absolutely. And you don't know who's going to get the goal. If it was somebody else, Mike Rooney's, I think he still would have had a very good life, and it would have been a life filled with a lot of speaking engagements. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that was what a way to go out. He was a smart man. He could have signed an NHL contract with somebody. Somebody would have given him money to come sign autographs and give them some sellouts down the stretch. And that's an amazing story that he didn't. But you're right. I mean, it was Jack Hughes, but I think Eruzione was the right guy to score the goal. He was, he was an extrovert. He was kind of central casting, this Italian kid with the Boston accent who, and again, back then, Boston accents seemed like you were from Mars. You didn't really hear them in movies and TV shows and commercials. And now Jack Hughes, I mean, the most overt, charismatic, cocky, self-assured guy on the team. Like to deliver that interview with Catherine Tappan seconds after scoring that goal, Frank. I mean, that was an eloquent, every point hit. Like that's a brain that is really smart and self-aware. He's the only player in the team that could have given that interview in that moment. And I think that interview added to the goal. It added to the mystique, just like Eruzione calling everybody up on stage in 1980. That was kind of something out of nowhere move that he did that made that moment bigger. All the Sullivan quote, the Eruzione on Larkins, these things start to build momentum. It's like an avalanche of images and experiences that make it even bigger. It humanizes it, like you were mentioning. It kind of, that was a vibe from the get-go to stay in the village, be a team. And Mike Sullivan said American swagger, and the whiskey drinker quote is like, that was a different vibe. And I think it gives this team, in a homogenized hockey world, it gave them a real personality and a real branding almost.
It did. And I'll say that I think Jack Hughes, his game not only grew in this tournament and reached new heights, but I think he grew up a lot in this tournament. And what do I mean by that? Think about what the storyline was about Jack Hughes heading in. This is a guy who's clearly talented, but always injured. This is a guy who, at one point in the lead up, the couple weeks to the Olympics, told New Jersey Devils fans that he didn't have anything to say to them. And I feel like someone got to Jack Hughes before the Olympics started and said, smarten up. Be careful what you say. Your words matter. Your tone matters. How you comport yourself matters. And the best example I have is I requested to speak to Jack Hughes, I'd say before the quarterfinals started. And I was kind of cringing because he can be combative at times. He can be short. You're fully preparing yourself for a 30-second conversation. If he's not in the mood, good luck.
Yep.
Instead, what I got was a very, very charming version of Jack Hughes. And it speaks to his intelligence that he has that ability, but also speaks to, again, someone saying, this is a big stage. This is a big moment for you. To then deliver in the biggest moment, I mean, it takes a special character to want that puck. I mean, Quinn Hughes was talking after the game yesterday, and he said, we're in the intermission, we're in the locker room, everyone's looking around. And he said 3 to 4 guys said to him, hey, Jack doesn't look nervous at all. He looks like someone who wants the puck. And there's a difference because guys, you don't need to say anything, but your body language in that moment, in that room, tells a lot about your team and a lot about you as a player. And he's got that it factor that we're now seeing on display. And frankly, the entire country will see on display for a long time.
Absolutely. And yeah, he brought all that swagger to that overtime, the amazing defensive play on Connor McDavid right next to the net, and then that big risky play to poke it by Makar and take off, and that he was anticipating an odd man rush, which is what you do in 3-on-3 hockey, is you try to create and anticipate the odd man rush. It happens quickly with fewer players on the ice. And then just to finish that beautiful looking goal, and then the helmet toss, the celebration, the interview, and even the iconic photo we talked about, flag draped over the shoulder, the freshly chipped chiclets, the fist in the air, that iconic photo, the interview with Catherine Tappan, and then the post game, supporting Auston Matthews as well. Really, like you said, he's a little fella. When you meet him in person, he's unassuming. You wouldn't think he's a professional athlete if you didn't follow the NHL. He doesn't scream athlete, but here he was, growing in size and stature from the goal, the interview, and like I said, giving Auston Matthews some props as well on the interview stand.
Is that your lasting image from these Olympics? Is the flag draped over Jack with that photo?
It really is. I think it really is, because again, he's a star. And he's central casting. He's got the charisma. It's just everything. Just think of those little moments that he was on the ice, that Sam Bennett stick. What if it missed his face? Like that's what I'm saying, that it becomes almost like a miracle on ice in terms of casting of all these moments that happened that made the ultimate moment for him, especially now. They keep getting stacked up on each other. There's like a momentum of positive vibes that just entered Jack Hughes' life slowly in this tournament, finding traction, finding his game, and looking like a player. His brother scores the overtime winner. That's inspirational for him, to be there. His mom is there. She wins a gold medal being associated with the women's team. And that definitely gave him vibes. And being around Keith Kachuk and his mom and dad, in that village, and John Tortorella and USA Hockey and these coaches. And it's just, for him, it was just a culmination. That photo was like, my goodness, to have that photo as after an amazing memory, it's the best 2 weeks of his life.
Yeah. My lasting memory, I mean, there could be a lot of choices, but mine's a really simple behind the scenes one. My lasting view: before the semifinal game, the U.S. practiced in the afternoon. They were the last practice of the day. Actually, sorry, there was one practice to follow. And so in the practice rink, it's set up almost exactly like your local rink. You have a slot for an hour, you have a slot for an hour, you have a slot for an hour, because there's so many teams to get to and only one practice rink, and the game rink's being used that day for games. So unlike NHL teams where you could stay out there forever, there's a Zamboni, and he'd honk and he'd come on, and you'd have to literally, like you're a mite, pick up the pucks and get off the ice. And this Zamboni is honking. Practice is over. Slovakia has to come on the ice for their practice. And the only 2 players left on the ice are Jack and Quinn Hughes. And they're just doing their thing, shooting pucks, one-timers. they are legitimate hockey junkies. You have to rip them off the ice. And this is like the day before the biggest game of their life to that point. They just love hockey. That's the lasting image to me, is like this group that all loved each other, but also rooted in the love of hockey.
And something just popped in my head as you told that beautiful story is I think one reason why Jack played so well is because he was around his family. This Hughes family, man, it's real. They are going to end up on the same team. That is unquestionable in my mind. Somehow they will make that happen. They love being around each other. They empower each other, especially Quinn empowers Jack. I think he felt comfortable being around him, practicing with him, being his teammate. And that's why he was playing so well. And if he wasn't playing so well, he would not have had the opportunities that he had, and he wouldn't have scored that goal probably. He might not have been as comfortable as those USA teammates said he was in the locker room before the overtime. That one reason why he maybe had that image and maybe he exuded that throughout the tournament was because his mom was there, his dad was there, his brother was there. I think that matters, and I think that kind of gives you a peek behind the curtain of why they do want to end up playing together, and they haven't been shy about that. And Jack has not been shy about that publicly. And then Quinn says, well, what would he say? Doesn't want to play with me? Of course he wants to play with me. And I think this Olympics is only going to kind of pour a little lighter fluid on that story, Frank, of the Hughes brothers trying to get together and being on the same team.
I mean, it's an eventuality, it feels like. I mean, we've
It
seen
is.
a
It
lot
does.
of
Even more so now.
amazing brother tandems over the years. The Sutters, the Sedins, the Shens. Go through any list, and a lot of them have ended up playing together or alongside each other. I can't remember a pair of brothers as close as these guys are, or throw in Luke as the third, because that's not to dig too deep on the relationship or that of others, but not just because they're your brother doesn't mean they're your best friend. I love my
Absolutely.
brother, but he's not my best friend. And
Yeah.
that's the case in a lot of families. So, but to see them and how they all got to this stage, Quinn leading the way, then Jack, then Luke, like it's one after the other, of one charting a path and the other one following along. And it's been pretty special to watch. They are hockey's first family right now. And the Kachucks, I mean, add them in to the conversation of brothers that are extremely tight. But
Yes.
there's no question that right now the Hughes family is hockey's first family.
Right. Hockey and sports in general, especially for this generation, can be lonely. I think the phone and social media and growing up on, Snapchat and Twitter, they made some mistakes out there in terms of not understanding screen grabs and how that could be repurposed, unfortunately, through the hockey algorithm. And they grew up with that. So I think a lot of this generation of mid-20s to 30-year-olds got kind of skittish and kind of really, didn't go out, stayed in their rooms. And so to find that bond with someone, and you're right, I think the Kachuk and Hughes brothers are almost like twins, even though they're not twins. They kind of, that's what it's kind of become. And the Sedins, like I said, they ended up on the same team, and that just happened. I guess, I don't know if it was an arrangement, but it's like everyone said, okay, we have to get them on the same team. We have to make a trade here at the draft because they have to play together. And the Hughes and the Kachucks are they're almost like twins, and they act a lot like twins, like the Sedin twins. And that's why, and I think there are reasons for that.
I was going to say, maybe the best way to say it, and brings a different entendre, is that it feels like it's the Hughes brothers against the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're obviously Quinn and Jack are little fellas, but Luke is taller. So, but yeah, I wonder at some point, but yeah, they're just stars. Jack was overall draft pick #1, and Quinn, went to Michigan, they're all high draft picks. So it's not like they were overlooked or anything, so they can't quite play that card. But in some ways, yeah, but they obviously Quinn and Jack have work to do, and Brady on the NHL level, like to win a Stanley Cup, like that's a big deal. So that's the next quest for them as
what a
while they enjoy this gold
608
medal.
days, by the way, from Matthew Tkachuk. 608 days, 2 Stanley Cups, 1 Olympic gold medal.
A wife, a kid.
That's 3 White House celebrations.
What a run. What a run in his 20s for Matthew Tkachuk right now. Any other more USA images or thoughts before we head to Canada?
No, I just think this is a week that, as everyone in the casual media world or other political or whatever dojo people live in, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this sport. I hope they stick around longer than Preds Blackhawks on Wednesday or whatever game we have.
Right. Me too. I'm skeptical. People don't watch figure skating, track and field, downhill skiing in between the Olympics. Obviously hockey's a little elevated than that in this country, but my fear is that, we're not going to get a huge bump, but I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. All right. Canada. It's a tough day, despite all their success that you have documented on this show via incredible looking graphics with lots of little mini Stanley Cups and mini Conn Smythes and mini everything. It was quite the contrast between Canada and Team USA. So I guess that's a good question to ask you. The first question, Frank, why does it hurt so much? They've won so much. They've won everything. Why does it hurt?
Well, Canada's national identity in a lot of ways is tied into and wrapped into hockey. They have a very possessive nature to this sport that it's not a coincidence to me that the Tkachuks very vocally were saying post-game, hockey belongs to the United States. And they don't mean that as a political tug of war. They mean it as you need to stop possessing it now because it doesn't belong to you. And that's part of the reason why. And I just thought that it deserves a bigger conversation piece today, which is, why did Canada as a team, as a federation, look, that is a brutal game to lose. There's no two ways about it. Why did they react seemingly the way that they did? I'm want to be totally clear that I'm not saying that they were sore losers, because that's not the case. But the things that they did say or echo, I think are really kind of easy to poke holes in. And we'll start with Nathan MacKinnon. Nathan MacKinnon says after the game, succinctly, you be the judge of who was the better team today. And I feel like that is a really difficult position to put a lot of people in. Because last time I checked, whatever the goalie does counts.
Right.
Canada had opportunities and missed. So this idea of we outplayed you and lost, that doesn't hold any value to me. Everyone was throwing expected goals or they deserve to win. I don't think that that's true. That's not how life works. That's not how sports work. When you have a wide open net and you hit the side of it, that's not anyone else other than you not living up to that expectation in that moment. When you have two breakaways, two of the three best players in the world, and you don't score, that's on you. And Connor Hellebuck, it diminished what he did by saying essentially, oh, we got goalied today. Well, you got goalied, but then also in overtime, you made some poor choices and decisions and tried to do a lot of it yourself, not just Nathan MacKinnon, but also Connor McDavid. And I love that they're the alphas and aggressive and just thought, hey, we're going to go out there and do it. But we'll talk in a second about Canada's team structure and why that was problematic. And that this idea that the U.S. somehow didn't deserve the gold medal, that plus then John Cooper saying after the game, well, you take 4 players off the ice with 3-on-3 and it's a different game, as if to say it's not hockey. And the first thing I think of, Butchie, is, well, 2010 when Sidney Crosby scored, it was 4-on-4. But beside that, if Canada were the victor in this game, there's zero chance that they'd be sitting at the podium going, well, we did take 4 players off, so maybe our gold medal counts a little bit less. You only say that when you're on the losing end. And to me,
right,
What if? They are two words, small words, but they are only the words that are ever echoed by the losing team. What if, what if, what if? And there's a lot of that because there's a lot to digest. But man, it felt like there was a better time and place to have this conversation than right after the game, because that's not what the US was saying last year when they lost in Four Nations. They were not saying, well, we were this close. No, instead we were saying they failed. They were there and they lost and they had the opportunity and they didn't do it. You don't get points for being this close. You don't get points for deservo-meter. That's just my view.
Yeah, Connor Hellebuck is a player, just like their shutdown defenseman, Jacob Slavin, who doesn't score, but he is a very important part of the win yesterday. There are scoring wingers. Their job is to score and not defend as much. Every position matters. There's field goal kickers in football. There's long snappers. They all have to play well to win, especially at the highest level. It's basically an all-star team. Everybody's good. And so, yeah, now, the full McKinnon quote, maybe there was enough tip of the hat stuff, but still, that quote was said for a reason. And we've had 3-on-3 hockey so long in the NHL. You knew the rules going in. You won a 3-on-3 overtime. It's an advantage for you. You have the three best players in the world 3-on-3 with McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, who were on the ice when you lost. And, part of 3-on-3 hockey is defending. Absolutely. And I don't think Team USA would have mentioned that stuff had they lost the game. I just don't, I just think, like you said, it means a lot in Canada. They're wound a little bit tighter. 4 years is so long to wait for the next one. It's part of their definition of a hockey player is to win the Hockey Canada tournaments, whether it's World Junior or whether it's at the Olympics. It's very important. They place a high value on that. In America, it's more kind of fun. It's like, oh, this is cool. America's playing. This would be cool to hear some free bird, but it's not. They move on easier in these losses. They just do. It hurts the players, but I'm talking more the fan base. And so the players feel that. They're behind us, but it's not life or death. And that's the difference.
And that's what seeps through in their comments, I think, is they internalize and feel the pressure that was on them. And to be totally fair to everyone, there doesn't need to be we need to reinvent Canadian hockey or some summit or hand wringing over the roster or anything that happened here. Like, it's one game, one shot, one moment, and 3-on-3, and that's life. But I think the disappointing part was like these comments kind of diminished the accomplishment of the US, which in that moment in time, you're like, you said it because I was thinking it. I don't think the US would have reacted that way, and they didn't react that way after Four Nations last year. So different stage, different emotion. I don't know that we would have ever heard them belly aching about 3-on-3.
Right. And yeah, man, and I watched the game again last night, Frank, without the emotion of being a fan, which I admit I was in during the game, tense and nervous, really wanting Team USA to win. It was fun to do that, watching with my son. And I watched the game again, and yeah, certainly Canada had some really good chances. McKinnon could have had 3 or 4 goals. He had some really good looks. And McDavid drove those looks for him and Celebrini. They had slot chances, usually one-time chances. Both teams played good defensive hockey. Canada really did it. The game was very even up until the 5-on-3 power play. Shots were very, very easy, very even. Out of that, Canada seemed to slowly gain momentum. Usually when you kill a 5-on-3, you get it, but it just wasn't that kind of game for America. They couldn't seem to get it. And USA gave up shot attempts. Matthew Tkachuk had a one-timer early on. He made the extra pass. Auston Matthews had a one-timer. He made the extra pass. They kept giving up shots. They were very poised, in control, and confident. And they were never rattled, Team USA. The goalie was great. But overall, they kept coming as well, and they had their chances late in regulation. Jack Eichel's one-timer is right there for Matthew Tkachuk. Pad save. Then he tried to go between his own legs with the back to Binnington that would have scored, but I think it hit the skate of the defenseman. Like, Team USA had their chances here. This wasn't a one-sided, huge outshot the other team kind of a game. Definitely they had the slight upper hand. But as I watched it again, it was like it was a very even hockey game. And in the end, the goalie was just a little bit better player than anybody that you had. And that was the difference. He made the big saves, and then when you get to, again, overtime is random. Legends, there's many legends who haven't scored an overtime goal in the postseason, in the playoffs, and this is obviously considered a playoff atmosphere. But 3-on-3, it's going to be, the best player is going to play the whole period. But overall, as I watched the game again, I think the Canadian quotes were a little exaggerated, just a touch. I didn't think it was that kind of a game.
I'd combat you slightly in the sense that, like, I think the U.S. clearly won the first period, and they were on their heels for the final 40. Now, were there stretches in that 40 that they won, like that 5-on-3 PK? Yes, but they were far and few between, and I mean, they were kind of just surviving. They were in trauma mode to get to OT. But then in OT, Quinn Hughes could have very well been the hero and scored on that beautiful one-timer that was cross ice. Like,
yes,
they did have another great opportunity there.
Right, they had those, and again, the issue, I think, why Team USA could never quite get momentum. They would have short bursts, especially after killing the 5-on-3. They just couldn't. Nobody really, Matthews wasn't shooting the puck. The Tkachuks in the Eichel line, they couldn't quite get the puck and get some of those cycling type of opportunities, which they would thrive in. Canada was doing a great job playing defensive hockey, getting the puck out. But let's face it, in the end, it was the depth of the USA that won them the gold medal. People thought maybe Canada had the more depth. They had the third pair defenseman, Zach Werenski, and they had the third line of Larkin and Hughes. Obviously, one guy can't play in 3-on-3 in terms of a line. You get two of them. And that they're against the top line, the top-heavy Canadian team who played that top line a lot. In the end, they were on the ice, probably tired, probably worn down. It was their second shift of overtime for them. It was the first shift for Hughes and Larkin and Werenski. They've had the entire intermission, and they are ready to go. And that little 50-50 poke with Makar, the fresher guy's going to win it. And then the shoulder check by Werenski against maybe the little more tired McKinnon, who was a little unsure there going back to get the puck. And then the fresh Jack Hughes shooting with momentum. Like, to me, that was a microcosm of the tournament. Was this top-heavy team, a lot like Edmonton is, and in the end, that can make a top-level guy tired at the very end when it matters most.
Well, that's the perfect segue to what would Canada do differently, and my answer to that is don't lose trust in the players you brought there, because that's really what happened for John Cooper. He had one line that was going, and the ice time was so disparate that these other guys that are at the bottom of the lineup, that are the big name, big star players on their club team, they didn't, like, the reigning Conn Smythe Trophy winner didn't play much. Sam Reinhart didn't play much. These guys that were at the bottom, I think they felt like, well, what are we doing? Like, we're not being really given a chance to impact this team. It's clear that the coach trusts one line and one line only. And that's a really hard position to play from when you're counting on three horses to carry you. And you mentioned the Oilers because they're the perfect NHL comp. But the flip side of that is that the U.S., and I ran into an executive, one of the people on the management team, I won't say which team, but he said the U.S. was much more of a team fully top to bottom than Canada was. It's depth, but it's also role, and it's value and importance of what you bring to the team. Like, there isn't anyone in that forward group for the U.S. that didn't make an impact in this tournament at some point in time. Matt Boldy scored a huge goal. Jake Gensel had a couple. JT Miller, Dylan Larkin, Brock Nelson, Vincent Trocheck all chipped in on the penalty kill. I mean, they had roles and they bought in and they were all used. They were all counted upon. And the defense is the same way. That just wasn't the story for Canada. It really wasn't.
Yeah, it reminded me, I wrote a book with Keith Jones way back in the day, Jonesy, and I remember talking to him about those Flyers teams that, Eric Lindros, every time he looked at the coach, it's like, put me on the ice. And he said that does not build team unity. Like you said, the guys at the bottom who are getting overlooked and skipped and skipped and skipped, they become grocery sticks. And it makes their shoulders sag. They lose. It's like, man, I'm not a part of this. This guy's going out there again. Again, you can only do what the coach does. And it's hard not to put a great player on the ice, especially when you're trailing. Again, Matt Boldy got the first goal. And you talked about that stat in best on best, how important it is. 70% of the time you go on to win. And that's because teams start to chase. They start to shorten the bench and they can get guys tired and guys can lose a bit of confidence because then after they get skipped a couple of times, then they do get a shift. They might grip hard because they don't want to make a mistake where they lose another shift.
Or you question yourself.
It's human nature. You question yourself. Boy, am I not good enough? But I thought I was, and I'm not. Maybe I got to do more, or maybe I got to do something differently. And I'm sure Cooper was communicating to staff. No, you're doing your job. It's just, we want this matchup. We got an offensive zone face-off. Their fourth line is out, and every time John Cooper saw that fourth line come out, he put McDavid out there, and that's the move. Try take advantage. And they had chances against that line. It could have turned out bad for Team USA. It was close, and also. And I also forgot about the one post that the amazing Jake Gensel cross-check redirection of the Faber shot. That could have gone in for America, right?
Double
there were moments Team USA had. Yep. They could have scored 4 or 5 goals as well.
Yep. And I don't like the connotation that comes with this when I say it. So take it for what it's worth, because I don't mean the whole thing. But there was some very Mike Babcockian things that we saw from John Cooper in this tournament that I don't know that he really put himself in the best light.
But to answer, I think that question right there, for me, succinctly, I don't think they would do much differently. From a roster construction, I think they made the right call. Jordan Binnington was good in net. He really was. And in the end, he wasn't the problem. The 2 goals, the breakaway for Matt Boldy, Canadian players were unable to really put on a good attempt on their breakaways. McDavid got in too quickly. He had no room left. Celebrini chose to shoot early. It wasn't a good shot. It was on the ice toward his skate. I don't know if he was thinking 5-hole or trying to get it just above the blocker, and he just maybe whiffed it a hair, but it wasn't a great attempt in the end. And the other goal, was Jack Hughes coming downhill from 15 feet. Those are really hard shots to stop. He made the glove save on Hughes. He gave them a chance with the Hughes save on Quinn Hughes, Jordan Binnington. So I think Canada overall, there's not much they could have done. Like you said, Connor Hellebuyck was the best player.
Changes.
Okay.
I would have made sure that Zach Hyman was on this team, because if you have one way that you can guarantee that Connor McDavid is going, and you could have gotten that same Macklin Celebrini magic with Nathan McKinnon on a second line, it would have made you deeper and more balanced. Number 2, I would have brought Evan Bouchard, because think about the success that Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar have together. They spend a lot of time on the ice together. Mm-hmm. Connor McDavid spends a lot of time on the ice with Evan Bouchard. If you could have one pair go with one line and another pair go with another line with like a symbiotic chemistry that you don't have to think about, that's the second one. And I think in the end, the goaltending was good. Most of the forward group was good. I just, a couple small little tweaks like that I think loomed large in terms of, should Josh Morrissey have been there, given some Injury, obviously unfortunate, but ran into it at Four Nations, like just wasn't able to go. That's a really tough spot 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. And like we talked about yesterday, in 4 years, we'll see Matthew Schaefer on this team. We'll see Connor Bedard
Oh,
on
that was
this
the other
team.
one. That was the third one I couldn't think of. It was Matthew Schaefer, because I think Macklin Celebrini proved that the moment isn't too big for these kids. And
No.
if you would have gotten the same energy on the back end that you got from Celebrini up front, I mean, with all due respect to Travis Sanheim, Shea Theodore, Colton Pareko, any one of those guys, maybe even Drew Doughty, although he was there for a different purpose, I just think Matthew Schaefer could have given them as much as those guys gave at the very least, if not way more. The upside, the ceiling is so much higher.
So we shall see in 4 years. On to Auston Matthews. How does his legacy change as the U.S. gets their first gold medal in 46 years? He represents such an interesting person and player in the NHL game in 2026. Mom born in Mexico. He's born in California. He gets raised in the desert of Scottsdale, Arizona. What Martian could have predicted this in 1968, that someday the best goal scorer in American history, possibly, when it's all said and done. His mom was born in Mexico. He was born in California. He was raised in Arizona. That just is not plausible. Just, 30, 40, 50, even 1980, for crying out loud. So he's a different dude in a different category. But then, of course, you add in number 1 overall draft pick, 60 goals, playing in Toronto, a team that's in that Boston Red Sox, Chicago Cub category now, trying to win that cup for the first time in a long time. The pressure's there, and obviously the lack of playoff success there. Now he comes to Team USA. He has a gold medal. What does this do in your mind?
Well, let's let the Hughes brothers tell what should happen from here.
Boom.
I don't want to take you away from this moment. Obviously, it's a tremendous accomplishment. But in a couple of days, we're going to have to get back to the NHL regular season. But how do you think you're going to take, this winning experience, like in this, everything you learned with this incredible group, and kind of like take that for the rest of the season?
I'm trying to live in the moment, man. Come on.
I think it doesn't matter what anyone says now. Auston Matthews is a winner. Auston Matthews is an Olympic gold medalist. He's a winner.
Yeah, that's what the media in Toronto should be talking about. Auston Matthews led us to a championship. So,
Boy, it's good to have 2 hype men like that, man. Jimmy Hart. Got 2 Jimmy Harts next to you. Just, because Austin's a quiet kid. He's very introverted, and Jack Hughes is not. He couldn't wait. As soon as that question was asked, he's looking, let me give the answer. I got the answer for you. And then Quinn backs up his brother, and there's Austin just kind of, leaning back.
Well, I think this narrative has changed in a big way, probably for 2 different Toronto Maple Leafs, not just Auston Matthews, but Mitch Marner again scoring a really clutch goal in OT for Team Canada. That maybe a couple things come to mind. It's like 2 good people that are in a marriage that doesn't work. Sometimes chemistry is real. It doesn't mean they're bad people or bad hockey players. That just was the mix that didn't work in Toronto. But 2, Auston Matthews, you could put up the stats, 7 points in 6 games at the Olympics, 3 goals, and they're not the 13 that Connor McDavid scored. But what they are and what he gave the U.S. was some incredible moments defensively. You go back and you mentioned you watched that gold medal game. His intuitiveness, his attention to detail, and his work. I've watched it again already. It is like, that is a poster for leadership and success in a championship game. Not about the glory of the goal, but simply about making sure we don't get beat. And he has a lot to be proud of for the tournament that he had, the heat that he took coming in, because I want to raise my hand and say, I thought they had the wrong captain, and I verbalized that. I wanted someone that had been there and done it before. And now that is what he brings back to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I can do this. I am a winning hockey player. I can lead my team to the Holy Grail. And it's not going to happen this year. And it may not happen for a little bit. And it may not happen in Toronto. But no one's going to take that away from him or his really significant and important contributions to this team. He has changed the narrative for me in a big, big way, because this was a very mature tournament for Auston Matthews.
This is a massively talented hockey player. Every teammate knows it. He is big. He is strong. He has scored 60 goals twice. He almost scored 70 goals in a season 2 years ago, 69 goals. He's going to get his 500th career goal next season as a 29-year-old. His 500 goals before he's 30. The players know, right? And they see him do things. The video when he flips up the stick to his teammate in the Maple Leafs, it just falls right in the guy's hand. What he does yesterday out of midair, clearing pucks out of midair, just ridiculously talented. And unfortunately, unless you score goals, now, had he scored the goal in overtime, it would be bigger and better, I think. No doubt. It's hard for your average sports fan to see what we saw in those details and what an amazing defensive player that he turned out to be, and responsible and big and still a threat offensively. But the offensive just didn't really come out yesterday. So it was a fine line. We're living on the edge here. We're hanging on. We needed a great goalie performance, and we needed some help. And otherwise, it could have been another disappointing loss where he gives up a chance of trying to score a goal down low against Binnington and making the pass instead back to Boldy. But it worked out, which is fine. But, I think once he gets back in the grind of the NHL season now, and then this offseason hits this summer, Frank, I think it's really, it's either hang on Toronto forever or make a move this summer. I think we've kind of reached that point with him. Don't you think? Like, I need to make, maybe I need to do something different here. Or am I going to stick around here and just kind of grind this out? I turned 29, so I'm almost 30 now. Where's this organization going? Do you think at some point he'll take inventory of the Maple Leafs and with his representation? And I just wonder if this experience with these guys, they're going to start talking like NBA players and like, why don't we try to play in the same team? We'll sacrifice a little bit and end up on the same team together. Because that's what happened with USA basketball when those guys started to go to the Olympics. They were teammates and they kind of like how that felt. And that's when you started to see then the NBA players kind of having these little mini packs and ended up on the same team, because it was through the Olympics that they really kind of started those conversations.
Yeah, and I would say that your tweet the other night about Connor McDavid joining the San Jose Sharks to play with Macklin Celebrini, like on the surface, it sounds insanely far-fetched. But when you really think about it, you're like, Connor McDavid going to the Sharks? Come on, get out of here. He's not going to play in the Bay Area. But it's about the talent that's around you, and it's undeniable the chemistry that they had, but also the ability to help each other win. So I do think there's something there. I would say with the Leafs, at least if I were in a position of managing or consulting with the Leafs, this would have affirmed to me that this is the right guy. And so I believe they have a pretty strong pact with each other, that they feel comfortable about Auston Matthews continuing to be the centerpiece of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And now at least you have evidence to point to, as opposed to just theory or conjecture, which is what was out there in terms of him being able to get over the hump. Now you've got something tangible, and I think that means something. And not to put too light of a spin on this, but this, you mentioned Jack Hughes and that press conference. This is my new GIF moving forward. Anytime my wife, or I'm going to be sending this to my wife a million times, this gift right here. Just one more. One more
Corona. Is that a Corona? Looks like a Corona. What is that beer?
It was a Corona. That was the official beer of the Olympics. That's all you could drink in the arena. A Corona.
Well, I'm not a huge beer drinker, but there's a short list where I like, and that's the one I would. That's on the yes list for me. There's probably about 4 or 5. I'm more of
But
the
what a
Mike
get like
Sullivan whiskey.
like I'm gonna be.
Yeah,
Do you know how many
so
do
good.
you know how many guys around the country are going to be sending this to their wife on like Friday night at 12:45 when it's time to come home?
So good. Well, I was my dad's beer caddy. He's working around the house. My dad was, really good around the house. John, go get me a beer, and he always let me open it and take the first sip. When I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. You did that back then. Dad, yeah, go ahead, take the first sip, and I loved that first sip of a cold beer at Iron City. Then I give it to him, and he would finish hammering and putting up shelves and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was Quinn. His going to, hey, before mom gets back, get me one more. So good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, Beckett Nelson in 2046. What's this?
It's an amazing story that of all the storylines we didn't get a chance to talk about, but the only 3 gold medals that the United States has ever won, Brock Nelson's grandfather on the team in 1960, his uncle, the Christians in 1980, and then Brock, his uncle was in the building, by the way, in Milan, and Brock wins in 2026. So you see Brock Nelson holding his son after the game. No pressure, sir, but we're going to need you on this Olympic team in 2046 or whenever it is to help the U.S. Hopefully not their next gold medal by then, but nonetheless,
Yeah, right.
it was a special story that we followed all along, that this genealogy, this tree of Olympic glory for the U.S., that they're only allowed to win with one of these Nelson Christian family players in the lineup.
Yeah, now that there's NHL players in the Olympics, and if that continues uninterrupted, there will not be long droughts again for Team USA. Obviously, that they now produce enough high-level players where they're not going to go through that long of a drought like they did this time. I mean, it could be 8, 12, certainly, and it could be a generation for sure, and that's long enough.
But that's why this win was for Canada, or this loss was more consequential, is like the run of dominance is very likely. You're not going to get a 16-year run where you win 15 best on best games in a row. That's very unlikely to happen moving forward. Not saying it can, or that Canada isn't going to be well positioned, and we could have some fun on tomorrow's show thinking about 2030 and what these next teams look like. But the gap is closing. It really is.
Yeah, I saw that Beckett, and that's another guy who jumped in my head while we were talking earlier in the show. Beckett Seneca, he's going to be an Olympic winger as well. I mean, absolutely for Canada. So they really looking forward. They have a little stronger farm system, Olympic farm system, than Team USA as of now. But you never know what 17-year-old, 16-year-old American could blossom and end up being a great player. And plus, the current group, Auston Matthews would be 32, Jack Eichel 32. They still have another, really good, strong Olympics in them for sure. One more to go before then the one after that. And that's that's the magic of the Olympics. You really only have one shot every 4 years. This is Jack Eichel and Auston Matthews likely only have one more after this. And so that's why those guys who are 30, 32, this is like in Marchand, and we'll see about Crosby and, Tom Wilson and Mark Stone. This was probably their one chance to win an Olympic gold medal, unless they become an amazing bobsledder or something like that, or curling. We'll see. All right. The trade freeze is over, Frank. We could have a trade. You could get a text right now during the show, live on Frankly Hockey, about a deal. Check, make sure there's no trades to report.
Yeah, I'm in the do not disturb mode, so I just had to look real quick. Nothing to report.
All right. Okay. So now we have our top 10 trade targets board, the new top 10 trades target board. I think explain to the viewers. Maybe we got our own Olympic bump, Frank. Maybe people downloaded the old Victory Plus app and they're watching us now for the first time in a few. And what is a trade target board? How do you construct it? So let's speak to these viewers like they're 15 first-time viewers and explain the trade target board and then take it right to the trade deadline, which is coming up a week from Friday.
Yeah, it's coming in hot, and the trade freeze, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, was lifted at midnight on Monday morning Eastern time. No trades processed yet, but in terms of the trade targets board, I collect names from sources around the league and I rank them based on likelihood of a trade blended with the magnitude or impact of a player. So the first guy on the list is an Olympian and a guy who did certainly make an impact for the U.S., particularly on the penalty kill, and his versatile role as Vincent Trocheck as the Rangers go about this retool process that they'd like to not define. Blake Coleman, as I mentioned before, has had tons of interest from around the league as a missing piece type player. Nazem Kadri from the Calgary Flames is the after Vincent Trocheck, and the Flames are probably in a little bit of a holding pattern until Trocheck moves. He's the second most valuable or hottest commodity on the center market. The New Jersey Devils would like to improve, certainly on the back of Jack Hughes and his Olympic magic. Dougie Hamilton's name has been out there for a long time. He holds all the cards. And number 5 would be Andrew Mangiapane. The Edmonton Oilers cannot make a trade deadline acquisition between now and Friday without first moving him. I think the question at this point is, will the Oilers need to attach an asset to move his contract just south of $4 million, which also includes next year? They'd rather not do that. But to this point, it's been a little bit of a grind trying to move that deal. And I'd expect that to potentially materialize here in the next 3 to 4 days to set the Oilers up with a week or so to try and improve their roster, where they're looking for a winger with size who can score.
And of course, now double salary retention was outlawed on trades as one of the new collective bargaining agreement rules. So star players with those chunky cap hits, a little harder to move. No more playoff LTIR loophole. And teams are required to be salary cap compliant by game 1 of the postseason. How will that affect the trade market? Will there be fewer trades, or will these GMs just try to get more creative?
No, I think some teams were squirreling away cap space over the Olympic break, which is why you didn't see some trades before, because they were actually accruing space if they had some, and it piles up in a pretty big way toward the deadline. 2, there's some LTIR decisions to be made. The Dallas Stars are waiting on exact word on Tyler Seguin. What will the Florida Panthers do with Alexander Barkov? Do they even want to be a player on the trade market? Those are some questions, and they can always find a way to be creative here. And as we look at numbers 6 through 10 on the board to round out the top 10, a couple interesting names. Evander Kane popped up more recently that the Canucks are certainly trying to get that deal done sooner rather than later. I think Dallas was one of those teams, Tampa, that had expressed some interest of late. Those are just a couple names to watch, a couple teams. Eric Halla had a monster Olympics in Milan.
He did.
And he's a pending unrestricted free agent that I think was a reminder also in the thin center market as a guy who is that sort of prototypical third line center, that he could be a valuable addition to a playoff team. Of all the St. Louis Blues, tons of talk about Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou or Braden Shen. Sometime people had mentioned Jordan Binnington too. I think the most intriguing trade chip for St. Louis right now is right shot defenseman Justin Falk. He's one name, one more year at $6.5 million. Not a huge term commitment, but a reasonable number, and having a good season at 30 points. Connor Garland has a 6-year times $6 million contract extension that hasn't kicked in yet with the Vancouver Canucks. He's in the 9 spot. I still think that at this point in time, that's probably more of a summer transaction to want to take on a deal of that magnitude, but teams are calling the Canucks and they're having to sift through. Do we want to move out all of our vets, some of our vets, just the pending UFAs? And finally, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. The Carolina Hurricanes had some action on him prior to the trade freeze. Right now, the only way they're moving him is if they can find a clear upgrade at center elsewhere that then makes moving out Kotkaniemi easier. It's not for cap considerations. He has 4 more years left at $4.8 million. So they'd like to try and upgrade and improve, but the only way, again, that they move him is that they find that other solution externally first, because there isn't one internally. And we'll be rounding out our trade targets board. We'll have a full top 25 later this week.
All right. And what's your expectation or likelihood that some unexpected name suddenly surfaces? Or do you think the circumstances won't allow that or have it happen?
I'll put it this way. I talked to one general manager this afternoon here while I'm in Germany, and I said, any new names or surprises? And he said, well, we had pro scouting meetings during the Olympic break, and we came up with a list of 30 players that you would say typically wouldn't be available. And we called around to the entire league, and maybe only 2 of them could be pried loose. So my answer to your question is probably not, but always interested to see how this market evolves, and maybe a team that's toward the bottom or is in a seller position is maybe willing or ready to give up on another player for a significant return.
All right. Let's ask the insider now. How did the 2010 Olympics impact 2026 gold, Frank?
Turns out in a pretty big way. Check out this tweet from my old pal, Craig Custance, who's one of the executives at The Athletic now. He was a hockey reporter, and this tweet was from 2011, January 2011, where he said the impact, this is the unsaid part, but the impact of the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. So in 2010, USA Hockey's 8 and under membership reached 100,000 players for the first time. And he took that tweet, and this was in 2011, and he said, look out, 2026 Olympics. So now, as the participation numbers will surely grow in the US in 2026 and 2027, look for those kids in 2034, 2038 to be impacting in a real way. A couple of them for sure will pick up hockey, just like Auston Matthews did, that they'll find a way to get to the biggest stage.
Very cool. I had my son Jack was 11 that year, and I coached him as a bantam when he was 12, and those are great memories for sure. And of course, 1996, that was the year that the National Development Program was established in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yeah, that's the same year Jack Eichel was born. So you can see that was their idea. Let's train to create elite hockey players. And that program, 30 years old, and here these guys are in the middle of this gold medal. Hashtag Hockey Time, where we scour the social media world to bring you the constant variety of content. Herb Brooks' words echoed 46 years on, Frank.
So one of my favorite parts about this tournament was Mike Eruzione and the other members of the 1980 Miracle team basically saying enough. The story's been great. The documentaries, the movies, it's been fantastic, and we've enjoyed our time in the spotlight, but it's time to pass the baton. It's time for these guys to step up and win. But nonetheless, Miracle and channeling that energy obviously was at the forefront in the US the last weekend. And this is Sunday morning near me outside of Philadelphia in a bar. Check out this guy's outfit and check out how he channels Herb Brooks.
Burns here tonight. 1 game, 1 overtime. If we played them 10 times, they might win 9. But not this game. Not tonight. Tonight, we skate with them. Tonight, we stay with them. And we shut them down because we can!
He did the whole thing, and that was before
so
overtime.
Good.
In the intermission. Can you imagine the electricity of just the intensity of that game, but being in that bar at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning in Pennsylvania, watching this in Milan and hearing this guy dressed wearing those 1980s pants and hilarious coat. and giving word for word the Herb Brooks speech that a lot of hockey players around the world have memorized.
Yeah, he went there prepared. Like you said, he had the uniform, and that was some great stuff. That same color jacket that Herb Brooks had on and Kurt Russell had on in the movie Miracle. Great stuff there. Love that. All right, the last word on this edition of Frankly Hockey. What the American victory is all about, Frank.
For me, it's a country coming together. It's attention to this sport and the great athletes and people that are surrounding it. It's thinking about Jim Johansson and his impact on USA Hockey. Bill Zito, the Florida Panthers GM, had a great tweet carrying the JJ coin with him at the game. But it's also about the reaction of kids who are already bought in. And this is, there's like literally hundreds of rinks. I've seen videos from planes where fans were celebrating, watching the game live on TV on the seat back screen. But watch this. This is the middle of a youth hockey game, and watch the reaction as these kids are playing and engrossed in a game when they learn that the U.S. wins in OT. Can you imagine? This is in North Carolina. This wouldn't happen in 2010.
It's moments like this you'll never forget. Everybody just stopped.
So cool.
It's crazy.
So cool that they had that attitude. I'm sure there were some parents, get back out there and win the game, but to have them have that joyful moment. And like I said, I was 14 years old in 1980, so I remember it very well. And the impact it had on my classmates who weren't really into hockey. I was in Ohio at the time, and I was kind of a mutant because my dad was from Boston. I grew up with the game. I watched the game. I could ice skate. I could play hockey. And it was just to see what it meant and how people were so fired up about it. And now in America here in 2026, when there's hockey again, we talk about the Auston Matthews things. They play hockey in North Carolina. We wouldn't have thought about that in 1980, but they helped make that happen. And now hopefully yesterday's gold medal will only continue to have the sport grow and get people to pay attention and have that kind of reaction. That's what I love about the afterglow, what's coming. The moment was great and it was amazing, but it's going to linger for a while, which is a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, and just the gratitude I have to be able to have been there. I've never done an Olympics
Very
before.
cool.
I don't know that I want to do another one because I don't know how many games are going to top that one.
Right. Well, it was great having you there. It's been so fun talking to you about the experience and delivering Frankly Hockey on a continuing basis while you were there over the weekend. The pregame shows, the postgame shows is really fun to talk about. It made me enjoy it more just talking with you about the experience and maybe look forward to the games every night. And we hope the viewers had the same experience, that we gave them a chance to get fired up about it, break it down, look at it analytically, but also emotionally, which is what this sport is. Hockey's a blood sport. It's about passion, about teamwork, about whiskey, about friendship, about standing on a bar and memorizing a speech from 46. That's what the sport is about. We're all crazy. We're guilty. We're wacky. You have to be to love this sport and live this sport. And we welcome all the crazies out there to come inside our tent and enjoy this great game. It's so much fun. It will enrich your life and make it better, I promise you. So thanks so much, Frank. Safe travels now. We hope the snow is now plowed. It's ending slowly here, looks like today, but I think we need to move the snow, and we hope you can get home safely and continue talking hockey up to the trade deadline.
Can't wait.
All right, bud. Safe travels. And again, thanks so much for watching Frankly Hockey on Victory Plus X YouTube. We're here 5 days a week, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. We'll see you next time.